Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He left for 2 weeks, came back to find strangers building condos on his land that's been in his family for generations, permits forged, trees gone, and his name erased. But they picked the wrong man to steal from. This isn't just a fight, it's war, and he's bringing the bulldozer. I'd been gone less than 2 weeks, just a short demolition contract down in Corpus Christi, a city job, nothing out of the ordinary. My crew handled most of it. I just made sure the explosives didn't go where they shouldn't. We wrapped ahead of schedule and I was feeling good driving home. The thought of kicking my boots off, sipping some bourbon, and watching the sun dip behind the mesquite trees from my porch kept my right foot heavy on the gas. I turned off the main road and onto the long gravel path that led to my land. 40 acres of Texas dirt that had been in the Brooks family since before Elvis even thought about shaking his hips. My dad bought it after coming back from Korea, built the original house with his own hands, taught me to do the same before he passed. The place had scars, weather-beaten sheds, oil-stained dirt patches, rusted equipment, but every inch of it was mine. Untouched, undisputed. So you can imagine my confusion when I rounded the hill and saw the bright orange construction fencing, earth movers, a half-dozen pickup trucks, rebar sticking out of poured foundation slabs like angry ribs. I slammed the brakes. Dust rose around the truck like a desert ghost. There were men in hard hats moving lumber. One guy was running a circular saw. Another was barking into a walkie-talkie. At least 3 buildings were already framed out. Wooden skeletons where my brush line used to be. My trees, gone. The old windmill by the creek, bulldozed. My land, unrecognizable. I threw the truck in park, flung the door open, and stormed toward the nearest group of workers like a rattlesnake in boots. "Hey!" I shouted over the machinery. "What the hell are you doing?" The guy with the walkie-talkie looked up, confused. "You with HOA?" I blinked. "The hell I am. This is my land." He stared at me like I'd just told him I was the Queen of England. "Sir, this is Willow Pines, Phase 2. 18 units, permits all filed." "Willow Pines," I repeated, stunned. "You're telling me you're building condos on my property?" He pulled a clipboard from under his arm and showed me a site map. It had parcel numbers, HOA stamps, city zoning approvals, even an engineer's signature. But it wasn't my name on it. It was Brightstone HOA Development Group. I laughed, the kind of laugh that sounds more like a choke. "This is bullshit," I said. "This entire section, 12 acres, is part of my family's land. I got the deeds. I got the tax receipts. I mow that damn grass myself." He shrugged, clearly uncomfortable now. "Talk to the office, man. We're just following orders." I pulled my phone and called the sheriff's department. The deputy showed up an hour later. Young guy, polite. He listened to my rant, asked for ID, checked my documents. I showed him the deed, updated last spring. County issued, notarized, all legit. He looked it over, nodded slowly, and then said the words I didn't want to hear. "This looks like a civil matter. You'll probably need to take this to court." "Court? This is trespassing. They're pouring concrete on my goddamn property." "Sir," he said calmly, "if they have documents too, the court's going to have to sort it out. I can file a report, but I can't stop their work unless there's a clear criminal offense." I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. The next morning, she came. A white Cadillac Escalade with blacked-out windows pulled up to my gate like it owned the place. The window rolled down, and there she was. Blonde bob, dark sunglasses, red lipstick like she was headed to a funeral for someone she didn't like. She stepped out wearing heels, of all things, on a dirt road, holding a tablet like it was a holy book. "You must be Mr. Brooks," she said with a politician's smile. "I'm Karen Streeter, president of the Willow Pines Homeowners Association." I stared. "The hell do you want?" "I'm here to clarify the confusion," she said, tilting the tablet toward me. "According to the county's latest development plan, this section of land has been rezoned and annexed into the Willow Pines Phase 2 expansion. It's been flagged as inactive rural land and reassigned under Brightstone's oversight." "Reassigned by who?" I growled. "God? Because I sure as hell didn't sign a damn thing." She offered a tight smile. "There was a planning committee vote at the district level back in February. Notices were posted." "No one posted anything on my land," I snapped, "because if they had, I'd have torched it." "Language, Mr. Brooks," she said sweetly. If you believe there's been a mistake, I encourage you to file a petition with the Zoning Commission, but until that's resolved, construction will proceed." She turned to leave. I stepped in front of her. "Don't you dare pour another inch of concrete. I'm the only one with rights on this dirt." "You'll find that rights are fluid," she said. "Good day." That evening, I tried to access the southern field, the part where the builds were going up. A couple of security guards, private armed, stood at the entrance with a folding barrier and a laminated sign. "Authorized personnel only. Brightstone HOA development project. No entry." I nearly ran the barrier over. Instead, I backed away slow and cold, parked the truck by the barn, and stared out at the growing skyline on my own stolen horizon. The sign might as well have read, "This ain't yours anymore." The next morning, I found a letter nailed to my gatepost. Not mailed, nailed like we were in the damn Wild West. It read, "To Mr. Logan Brooks. Be advised that entry of demolition equipment onto Parcel B will be considered criminal trespass and malicious damage. Cease interference immediately. HOA legal counsel will pursue damages." Signed, in big bold letters, Karen Streeter, President, Willow Pines HOA. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the kitchen, boots still on, staring at the table with every land deed and tax record I owned spread out like a battlefield map. I'd paid every goddamn cent on that land. Property tax, equipment registration, even the god-awful rural runoff fee they sneak in on landowners when it rains too much. I was no legal expert, but I knew this much. No HOA had the right to build on someone else's land, unless someone somewhere had either lied, stolen, or bribed the right son of a bitch. At sunrise, I called Nate Dorsey. Nate's in his 70s, half deaf in one ear, and allergic to just about every tree in Texas, but he's sharp as a railroad spike and twice as stubborn. He used to be a county judge before retirement got bored of him. Now he keeps busy taking weird cases like mine. Cases no one else wants to touch because they're too tangled in red tape and cow manure. He showed up in an hour wearing the same tan suit he probably got married in. "Tell me everything," he said. No greeting. I walked him through it. Construction, the fake parcel map, Karen's visit, the cops doing jack shit, and the HOA security station like it's Fort Knox. Nate listened without blinking, flipping through my papers with one hand and sipping coffee with the other. He asked me one question. "You got a digital copy of your title deed?" I nodded. "Scanned it last year." He pulled out his laptop, connected to the county database, and ran the parcel number through the assessor's office system. A few clicks later, he frowned. "Well," he said, adjusting his glasses, "they've got your land labeled as unclaimed rural reserve. That's not just wrong, it's strategic." He showed me the screen. According to the county's current zoning map, the southern 12 acres of my land were designated as Zone C redevelopment pending. It had a timestamp from 4 months ago, logged in by a county planning clerk named Stephen Hart. I'd never heard of him. "They used this to reclassify it as communal land," Nate muttered, "which let them file construction permits under a zoning loophole. My land was never unclaimed. I'd just left that southern stretch undeveloped. That's what made it a target. No house, no mailbox, no problem. I want names," I growled. "Every person who touched that file." Nate raised a brow. "You want war, son." "I want justice." He smiled like an old dog hearing thunder. "Same thing in this town." By noon, we'd compiled a full packet of legal documents, and Nate filed an emergency petition with the local district court for an injunction, basically a legal stop sign to freeze all construction until ownership could be clarified. We got our hearing date, 8 days from now. 8 days. In 8 days, those bastards could finish framing all 18 units, wire them, plumb them, and get them halfway to market ready. We needed to stall. That night, I drove my truck down to the access road, on my land, and parked sideways across it, blocking the entrance. I figured I had the right. The next morning, at 6, I woke up to honking. A young foreman walked up to my window. "Sir, you can't park here. We've got concrete trucks inbound." "Sure I can," I said, sipping my thermos. "This is my property." He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he called someone. 10 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy showed up. Different guy this time. Older, with the permanent frown of a man who hates paperwork. He was polite, I'll give him that. Said the developers filed a complaint of obstruction and wanted me moved. I showed him the deed. He squinted at it. "I hear what you're saying, Mr. Brooks, but right now they've got active permits." "You don't. I've got a hearing in 8 days. And until then," he said slowly, "you're on thin ice." He didn't arrest me, but he did tow the truck. Cost me $300 to get it back. $300 to retrieve my truck from my land. That afternoon, things got worse. I got an envelope from the city's Department of Building and Safety. Inside was a formal cease and desist notice for my demolition equipment stored behind my barn. According to the complaint, I was improperly storing hazardous equipment within 500 feet of a residential development. What residential development? You mean the one illegally squatting on my land? Nate pulled some strings. We found out the complaint came from none other than Brightstone HOA's legal team. Then came the fire marshal inspection, then OSHA, then code enforcement. One by one, they rolled up like termites in uniforms, writing me up for everything from excessive vegetation near fuel tanks to unmarked industrial-grade containers, which turned out to be my gas cans, clearly labeled, by the way. Every fine was under $1,000, but it stacked, and it wasn't random. Someone was using every city department like chess pieces. By the end of the week, I'd spent over $6,000 in legal fees, inspections, and towing. One of my longtime clients pulled out of a big teardown job in San Antonio, citing negative press concerns. I didn't blame him. The worst came when I got home late Friday night and found my mailbox full of HOA newsletters. Printed, glossy, thick as a phone book. Inside, a section titled Community Threat, Individual Impeding Progress. There was a photo of me, taken from a drone, standing in front of the southern field, arms crossed, like some outlaw threatening suburbia. Under it, a write-up accusing me of deliberately endangering community development, threatening workers, and spreading misinformation. I wasn't just being ignored anymore. I was being painted as the villain. I was being erased. By the time the third code inspector left my property shaking his head and muttering about paperwork inconsistencies, I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't just a land grab anymore. It was a slow-motion assassination of my life. Brightstone wasn't just trying to steal my acres. They were burying my business, dragging my name through bureaucratic molasses until I couldn't move without tripping over a form, a citation, or a complaint. My demolition yard had been operating for over 15 years. Never had a safety violation, never missed a permit, never had OSHA show up unannounced until the past week when they came twice. Once with a drone, once with a goddamn canine unit. I didn't know what they expected to sniff out. Explosives, weed, maybe an endangered armadillo I'd somehow kidnapped. I lost 2 more contracts, one out of Waco, one local. Both companies cited reputational concerns tied to ongoing litigation. I wasn't even suing them, but the HOA's little PR machine was humming like a locust swarm. They'd labeled me a problematic contractor, even sent emails to potential clients claiming I had a pending injunction for unsafe practices. It was complete fiction, but it worked. My office line went quiet. The yard sat empty. My bank account started to rattle. Then came the drones. At first, I thought they were neighborhood kids messing around. One zipped over my barn around sunset, hovered for a while, then zipped off. But the next day, there were 3. They floated above the equipment yard, circled my water tower, then parked above the field like metal vultures. I took one down with a 12-gauge and a slug shell. I didn't shoot it at the drone, technically. I just happened to fire a warning shot directly beneath it, and it happened to lose signal and crash into a cedar tree. Total coincidence. Apparently, Brightstone didn't see it that way. Next morning, 2 county deputies showed up with body cams rolling. They were polite, almost apologetic, as they handed me a notice of complaint. Reckless discharge of a firearm near residential development. Class A misdemeanor. Gentlemen, I said, that residential development was built last week, and it's on my land. They didn't argue, but they still handed me the summons. A few hours later, I got an email from the court. Karen Streeter, on behalf of Willow Pines HOA, had filed for a temporary restraining order against me. Her affidavit claimed I had brandished a firearm in a threatening manner, displayed volatile behavior, and posed a risk to the safety of residents and construction personnel. There were witnesses, apparently, contractors who'd conveniently seen me aiming at people, which, of course, I hadn't. But logic didn't seem to matter anymore. My attorney Nate tried to fight the TRO, but the judge granted it. I was legally barred from entering the southern 12 acres of my own land for the next 2 weeks. 12 acres, mine, and now off limits. I couldn't breathe when I read that ruling. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and yanked out 70 years of family history, just deleted it with a rubber stamp. I stood on the edge of the restricted zone that night, looking out at the construction site, now buzzing with activity. Lights strung across the frame lines like Christmas in hell. Cement trucks, electricians, plumbers, real estate signs already popping up. They were building over me while I stood in the dirt. I told myself to stay calm, to let Nate work, to wait for the court date. But then came the night of the HOA Community Watch incident. It was just after 10. I was sitting on the porch with a glass of rye, trying to decide if I should sell my damn backhoe just to pay fines, when I heard tires on gravel. Not just one, multiple. I stood up and grabbed the flashlight. 3 SUVs parked just off the main trail. Doors opened, flashlights flicked on. I heard voices, low, cocky, laughter. Then I saw them. 4 men, khakis, HOA polos. One of them had a clipboard. They were measuring something, taking notes, right on the border of the restricted zone. I walked down the hill, calmly, no guns, no yelling. I shined my light toward them and said, "Evening, gentlemen. Something I can help you with?" They didn't answer, just kept taking pictures. I stepped another 10 feet. One of them turned. "Mr. Brooks," he said with a fake friendly tone, "you're not supposed to be this close to the protected perimeter." "Protected from what?" I asked. "Coyotes? Reality?" He smiled. "We're conducting a community safety survey. You're interfering with HOA operations." "I am the community," I said. That's when it got stupid. Another guy stepped forward and bumped me with his shoulder, just enough to provoke. I backed away. I swear to God, I didn't touch him, didn't raise a fist, didn't even spit. But the next day, they pressed assault charges. "Assault," I repeated in court. "You mean being bumped into?" Didn't matter. I was arrested that afternoon. Held overnight, processed, fingerprinted, mugshotted, all for initiating a physical altercation during a protected HOA operation. My booking photo looked like something out of a revenge western. I refused to smile. Nate bailed me out by noon. He was furious. Not at me, at the system. "They're baiting you," he said. "They're manufacturing a public record to paint you as unstable." "Well," I said, rubbing the bruises on my wrist, "it's working." That week, local papers ran the headline, "Property owner arrested after escalation with HOA officials." Karen's quote was right under it. "We remain committed to peaceful development despite resistance from isolated individuals who do not reflect the values of our growing community." They were building a damn town over my bones, and they weren't finished yet. After I got out of that holding cell, something in me snapped, but not the way they wanted. They wanted rage, retaliation. Another headline, "Local man unhinged." Instead, I got cold, focused, the kind of clarity you only get when your back's pinned to the wall and all that's left is forward. Nate picked me up from jail in his beat-up Buick. He didn't say much until we were halfway down the county road. "They've overplayed their hand," he muttered, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Too fast, too confident. You don't build 18 units on someone else's land unless you're damn sure no one's going to stop you." "So let's stop them," I said. We got to work the moment we hit my kitchen table. Nate dug deeper into the land records. He cross-referenced the zoning change with old plat maps, city council meeting minutes, public notices, hell, even social media posts from the Brightstone team. I called in every favor I had left, old friends in utilities, construction, even a guy I once bailed out of a septic tank disaster who now worked IT at the county clerk's office. What we found? It was a goddamn blueprint for fraud. The zoning records had been edited about 4 months back. Digital entries signed off by a junior planner named Stephen Hart. His name popped up again on a building permit, and again on a subdivision plat approval. Too many times. Too perfect. Nate looked up from his screen and said, "That kid didn't do this alone." We traced the login back to an IP address assigned to, get this, Brightstone HOA Development's corporate office. "Jesus," I muttered. "They hacked the planning department." "More likely," Nate said. "They owned someone inside it." We needed proof. Hard proof. Enough to make a judge choke on his coffee. That's when Nate called in a favor from a journalist he knew, Emily Rojas, freelance investigative reporter, formerly of the Houston Chronicle, Now working independently after she pissed off too many real estate sponsors, she showed up 2 days later, denim jacket, legal pad, voice like a shotgun blast. I liked her instantly. She listened, took notes, asked sharp questions. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You have no idea how common this is. What's rare is someone who fights back before they bulldoze over the truth." Over the next week, Emily started digging. She pulled campaign contributions from Brightstone's leadership to the county zoning board. She interviewed a former clerk who claimed she was pressured into backdating a meeting record to show the rezoning had been publicly reviewed. It hadn't. She even found a different victim, a 74-year-old widow named Elsie Monroe, who lost her 5-acre horse farm outside San Marcos after the county claimed her land had lapsed into municipal possession. HOA built a golf course parking lot over it. She didn't have the money to fight. Now she rents. When Emily published her first piece, Stolen Acreage, How HOAs Use Bureaucracy to Erase Property Owners, it exploded. Local media picked it up. Then state media. Twitter caught fire. I went from local nuisance to man wronged overnight. Karen Streeter naturally was furious. The HOA released a public statement calling the article grossly misinformed, claiming Brightstone acted in good faith based on available public data. And, my personal favorite, that Mr. Brooks has a known history of hostility and is manipulating the media to avoid legal responsibility for past threats. I printed that one out and taped it to my fridge. The tide was turning. Not fast, but enough to draw attention. One morning, just as I was finishing my third coffee, a man showed up at my gate. Clean cut, gray suit, tan boots, maybe mid-30s. He introduced himself as Thomas Greer, homeowner in Willow Pines Phase 1. Real estate investor, bought 2 units off-plan in the new development before realizing none of them had real titles yet. They promised paperwork by next month, he said. But your story got me nervous. Smart man. He wasn't just nervous, he was pissed. Apparently, he'd sunk over $200,000 into reservations on unfinished condos built on my land. When I showed him the real deed, the real zoning lines, and Emily's article, he went pale. They said you were just a bitter old rancher who didn't want to sell. I am a bitter old rancher, I said, but I don't lie, and I don't build on land I don't own. That afternoon, Thomas went public, posted a 10-minute video on YouTube titled "I Was Tricked by Brightstone HOA." It went viral in 24 hours, tens of thousands of views, angry comments. Other buyers started coming forward, some from out of state, some retirees who'd invested half their savings. We were getting louder, too loud to ignore. That pressure finally cracked something. Nate filed a new motion, this time not just to stop construction, but to freeze sales, citing pending legal dispute over the land title and buyer deception. It landed on a different judge's desk. And this one, he didn't like fraud. He issued a preliminary injunction within 48 hours. All further development and sales activity on Parcel B are hereby suspended pending resolution of property title claims in Brooks versus Brightstone HOA. Construction halted. Half-built skeletons, silent machinery, realtors fuming in the parking lot. Karen Streeter didn't speak publicly for 2 days. When she finally did, she held a press conference on the model home lawn, smiling like the Joker in church. "We respect the court's process," she said, "and we look forward to clarifying the facts. Unfortunately, individuals with demolition equipment and personal vendettas have disrupted what was intended to be a peaceful community expansion." She glanced at me. Standing just beyond the police tape, arms folded. Then came her mistake. She added, "If these legal delays are not resolved swiftly, we may be forced to file for damages resulting from obstruction." I smiled. For the first time in weeks, that was the opening I needed. When you've been in a fight long enough, you start recognizing the look in people's eyes when they realize they've backed the wrong horse. I saw that look 3 times in the week after the injunction came down. Once in a real estate agent's frozen smile outside the Brightstone sales trailer, once in the HOA treasurer's face when he drove past my gate a little too slow, and once, most satisfying of all, on Karen Streeter's face when she left the courthouse, flanked by lawyers who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. But I wasn't celebrating yet. I'd learned that in this game, every victory was provisional. All it took was one slick backroom deal, one handshake behind closed doors, and the whole thing could flip again. So I pressed harder. Emily kept publishing. One article a day, every day. One about the fake zoning commission meetings. One about the conflicts of interest between Brightstone execs and county officials. One about campaign donations. She even did a walk and talk video on the property line itself, standing between my land and the half-built condos like some kind of war correspondent. Local news picked it up, then regional. I had reporters calling me from Dallas, Houston, even one from CNN who wanted to highlight the dangers of unregulated HOAs in red state America. I wasn't exactly thrilled to be anyone's poster boy, but if it helped crush Brightstone, I was willing to smile for the camera and say, y'all, like I meant it. Then came the real shift. Nate got a call from the Travis County District Attorney's Office. A young assistant DA named Khalil Maddox wanted to meet, off the record, as he put it. Nate and I met him in the back of a diner on a rainy Wednesday. He was sharp, intense, the kind of guy who looks at a napkin and sees subpoena potential. "I'm not here officially," he said, sipping coffee that hadn't been hot in 20 minutes. "But unofficially, this case stinks like a dead possum in a microwave." He laid it out. Several county employees, planning, zoning, land registry, had been flagged in an internal audit for patterned procedural irregularities. One name kept popping up, Stephen Hart, the kid who accidentally rezoned my land. Hart had resigned suddenly the week prior, no forwarding address. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Paper trail," Khalil said. "Anything that ties Brightstone's leadership to the internal changes. Emails, signatures, timestamps, payments. We get that. We get a grand jury." I nodded. "You get me a grand jury, I'll get you a goddamn PowerPoint." We gave him everything. The login records, the IP traces, the timeline. Emily even handed over screenshots from social media showing Hart partying at a Brightstone retreat 6 months ago, 2 months before the land mysteriously got rezoned. Khalil grinned. "You just might be the most dangerous man in this county, Mr. Brooks." "Damn right," I said, "and I haven't even started knocking things down yet." 2 days later, we were back in court. This time, we filed for an expanded injunction, not just a freeze on construction, but a legal order prohibiting all marketing, selling, financing, or contractual activity related to the units on Parcel B until ownership was resolved in full. Karen's team fought hard. They claimed I was weaponizing the media, harassing public officials, and, my personal favorite, using emotional manipulation to interfere with community planning. The judge wasn't buying it, especially not after Emily published her bombshell the night before, a leaked internal email from a Brightstone executive to Karen Streeter, dated 3 months before construction began. The subject line, "Brooks won't fight it. Old cowboy types never do." The courtroom was quiet when the judge read that one aloud. I watched Karen's jaw tighten like a trap about to snap. The ruling came down fast. All construction and marketing activities on Parcel B were to cease immediately. All existing sales contracts were frozen. All funds from prospective buyers were to be held in escrow pending litigation. And just like that, Brightstone's cash flow hit a brick wall. The next morning, I stood at the edge of my land and watched construction crews pack up. No more cranes, no more cement trucks, just silence and half-built shells baking in the Texas sun. I walked down to the fence line, looked over at the concrete foundations, and thought, that's about the right height for a tombstone. Karen tried to spin it. She called a press conference, dragged in 3 concerned buyers, and stood behind a podium in front of the model home, with a flag flapping behind her like we were at a campaign rally. "We remain hopeful," she said, "that this frivolous litigation will be resolved swiftly and fairly. The Willow Pines expansion represents opportunity and growth, not conflict and division." But then she made a mistake, a big one. She looked directly into the cameras and said, "If this legal obstruction is not resolved in 30 days, we will pursue financial damages against Mr. Brooks for impeding lawful construction efforts." I didn't smile, not in public, but inside, that was the opening I needed. They'd drawn a line in the sand. Now I just had to drag them across it. 2 weeks after the court freeze, Brightstone's empire was looking less like a luxury development and more like a half-buried crime scene. The weeds were coming in strong. Nature always knows when something's dead. Wooden frames stood crooked, sweating in the heat. A row of empty porta-potties flapped in the wind like the banners of a retreating army. The construction signs were still up, though. Now selling luxury condominiums priced from $400. Every time I saw that, I thought about the folks who'd already put down money. Retirees, young couples. Some of them came by to see me in person like I ran some kind of recovery hotline. One lady, widowed, maybe in her 70s, showed me a folder with a reservation form and a smiling photo of Karen Streeter holding a Welcome to Willow Pines keychain. She asked me, real quiet, "Am I going to lose everything?" I looked her in the eye and said, "Not if I burn this whole damn thing down first." Figuratively speaking. Mostly. Nate was doing laps through the county records, building up what he called a murder board, but for white-collar crime. Emily kept the story on fire. Every week, a new revelation. Brightstone's corporate shell had connections to 2 prior HOA lawsuits, both buried in settlements. One of their board members was a former city commissioner who'd been quietly removed after a zoning scandal. Then Khalil, our pit bull prosecutor, dropped the hammer. A grand jury investigation was officially opened into Brightstone, citing fraudulent land acquisition, document tampering, and conspiracy to defraud public entities. The announcement hit the news cycle like a lightning strike. Karen Streeter's face, smiling, smug, untouchable, was suddenly on every local station with the word fraud in bold below her name. Her lawyer tried to pivot, saying it was all a political stunt and anti-development hysteria. Nobody bought it, especially not the buyers. The same folks Brightstone had lied to. Well, they'd started talking to each other, sharing documents, comparing contracts, and then they did something I never expected. They lawyered up, together, a class action lawsuit filed by 37 individuals who'd put down deposits or reserved units in the Willow Pines expansion, alleging fraud, misrepresentation, and emotional distress. The lawsuit named Brightstone HOA, Karen Streeter personally, and, this was the kicker, the county zoning office. I read through the complaint over coffee and nearly choked laughing. They cited my story, my evidence, Emily's articles. One section even quoted me directly. "I'm the one with the title, they're the ones with the bulldozers." Karen must have loved that. Meanwhile, I kept my boots planted. The restraining order had long expired. My land was mine again, and I wasn't about to let the enemy build tombstones on it. So I filed one more notice, this one addressed to Brightstone, their legal team, and the court. If structures on my property are not removed within 15 business days, I will initiate removal under Texas Self-Help Property Code provisions and recover costs accordingly. No one responded, not a peep. So I made a phone call to my demolition crew, the same boys I've worked with for over a decade. We don't ask questions. We read blueprints and make concrete disappear. We rolled in before dawn on a Monday. 2 excavators, a loader, a flatbed with our signature high-impact debris trailer. Brightstone had their cameras up, sure. A couple of HOA observers showed up in polos and looked nervous. One tried to shout something about a stop work order. I showed him the deed. Then I showed him the court ruling. Then I climbed into the excavator, fired it up, and drove it straight through Unit 3A like it was paper. Wood cracked like bones. Nails screamed. Glass exploded into a million little reminders that this was my land, and no amount of fake permits or drone footage could change that. We didn't touch everything, yet. Just the first 2 buildings, closest to the property line. A warning shot. We cleared the rubble, loaded it, and drove it off. Left behind a fresh stretch of Texas soil. Untouched again. Brightstone tried to call the cops. Didn't work. Deputy showed up, looked at the court papers, and said, "Hell, if it were me, I'd bulldoze the whole thing." Karen, nowhere to be seen. Rumor was she'd hired private security for her house across town. I wasn't planning to visit, but it made me laugh. That evening, I posted a simple photo to my new Instagram page. Just a shot of the excavator silhouetted in the sunset with the caption, "If you build on my land, I'll build you a hole." It went viral in an hour. By the end of the week, Time magazine ran a web piece titled, "The Man Who Demolished an HOA." I wasn't smiling in the photo, didn't have to. Court days feel like funerals, except you don't get flowers and nobody brings pie. Just suits, cold coffee, and people trying not to blink too much when they lie under oath. By the time the Brightstone fraud case hit trial, the courthouse looked like it was hosting the damn Super Bowl. News vans lined the parking lot. Reporters paced the sidewalk like predators sniffing blood. People were holding signs, some supporting me. Others just confused HOA tenants who wanted to know where their retirement condos went. Karen showed up late on the first day. Custom suit, spray tan, sunglasses indoors. The only thing missing was a security entourage with earpieces and a Bible to swear on. She didn't look at me when she passed. Didn't have to. I was already seated in the front row, flanked by Nate and Khalil Maddox, who now looked like a man ready to feast. The prosecution opened strong. Emails, call logs, financial records, sworn testimonies. Stephen Hart's digital signature showed up in 100 places it shouldn't have. And when they finally tracked him down, holed up in Arizona under the name Brent Simmons, he flipped like a coin on fire. His testimony cracked the whole thing open. He admitted that Karen personally directed him to edit the parcel designations, that he was offered a bonus housing incentive to keep quiet, that Brightstone used county employees like poker chips, exchanging favors, dinners, and even covering a car lease for one zoning commissioner's nephew. That last one made the jury visibly flinch. Karen's legal team tried everything, claimed she was misinformed, misled, a victim of ambiguous systems. They blamed clerical errors, overzealous subordinates, even software glitches. Didn't work, because then came Emily's video evidence. A secret recording she obtained from a former Brightstone contractor. Karen standing inside the model home casually joking, "It's not his land if it's already under concrete. By the time he sues, we'll have families moved in." That clip played in the courtroom like a live grenade. No one moved. Karen went pale. First time I'd ever seen her drop the smirk. After that, it was just cleanup. Over the following days, we watched a lineup of Brightstone executives get marched through witness seats like a parade of snakes. Their stories didn't match. Their excuses fell apart. One by one, they were nailed for conspiracy, document fraud, campaign bribery, and perjury. When Karen took the stand, she tried to control the narrative, talked about progress, the American dream, misunderstandings. Khalil didn't even raise his voice when he asked her, "Did you ever intend to contact Mr. Brooks about the land before starting construction?" She blinked. "No." "Why not?" "I assumed he'd given up on it." "Despite his name being on the deed, the same deed you later tried to have amended without notice?" She didn't answer. The silence said enough. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. Verdict: guilty on all counts for Karen Streeter and 3 Brightstone board members. Sentencing came fast. 6 years prison for Karen, 3 to 5 for the others, plus personal liability for damages in the civil suit from the buyer's class action. Stephen Hart got a reduced sentence, 2 years probation, full cooperation deal. The judge didn't hold back. This was not a paperwork mistake. This was a coordinated, malicious theft of property, masked by bureaucracy and arrogance. I didn't clap. I just exhaled. 2 weeks later, I sat in a different courtroom, quieter this time. Civil case. My case. Brightstone HOA was ordered to pay me $7.5 million in compensation, $3.4 for damages and devaluation of my property, $1.8 for legal costs and business losses. The rest? Punitive damages. The HOA itself was dissolved permanently. Their assets seized and redirected to buyer restitution funds. Most of the so-called board filed for personal bankruptcy. Karen's house auctioned. I didn't buy it, tempting as it was. Instead, I bought back every parcel that touched mine, all 10 of them. I turned one into a protected wildlife zone, another into a training lot for new demolition apprentices. The rest, still just dirt and trees, my kind of landscaping. The public went wild. The whole country loved a story where a small guy wins, even if the small guy owns 40 acres and an excavator with his name welded into the arm. I got letters from homeowners in 6 states thanking me for fighting the HOA plague. Even got a standing invite to testify before a federal committee working on landowner protection reforms. They're calling it the Brooks Provision. I'm not saying I'm a hero. I'm saying I was right. 6 months later, my land is quiet again. No bulldozers, no HOA goons with clipboards, no cement trucks trying to erase a century of roots. Just cicadas, wind through the mesquites, and the occasional grunt of an apprentice learning how not to flip a mini excavator on a slope. Turns out you demolish enough things and people assume you know how to build too. Now I run weekend training workshops for younger contractors, veterans, folks coming out of prison, a couple of ex-union guys. We blow up things that need blowing up, but more importantly, we teach them how to stand their ground, legally, with paperwork and precision. Funny how a lawsuit turned me into a community mentor. I didn't ask for it, but after what happened, I sure as hell wasn't going to keep my mouth shut when someone else got pushed. The compensation money hit my account in early spring. $7.5 million. After taxes, legal fees, and some donations to every family Brightstone tried to rob, I still had enough to expand my business, buy more land, and finally fix the damn roof on the barn. I paid my crew double that month, paid off 2 mortgages for friends, even bought a new pair of boots, first time in 15 years. Karen Streeter's sentencing made national news. She got 6 years without parole, and the judge didn't sugarcoat it. This was premeditated land theft wrapped in HOA letterhead, he said. You wore bureaucracy like armor and hoped no one would notice. She's in a state correctional facility now. Minimum security. I'm told she's teaching financial literacy classes. Irony's got a hell of a sense of humor. The other board members got 3 to 5 each. The zoning staff who took bribes, fired, barred from public office. One got house arrest, another got jail time. The clerk who first flagged the irregularities, promoted, and the buyers, the folks who got caught in the crossfire, well, they won their class action suit. Between Brightstone's liquidation and court-ordered restitution, they got most of their money back. Some even came to visit the property. One guy asked if I'd ever consider building real housing there for veterans or retirees. I'm thinking about it. Not condos, though. Cabins, maybe. No HOAs allowed. The best part? Texas passed new legislation. They called it the Private Landowner Protection Act. Unanimous vote. It limits HOA authority over non-member land, requires full public transparency for zoning changes, and creates felony penalties for falsifying property records. The media dubbed it the Logan Law. Never thought I'd see my name in a law book, next to a cartoon of me in a cowboy hat under the caption, "The Man Who Bulldozed the HOA." Some meme account made a t-shirt out of it. My niece sells them now, $50 a pop. But for all the noise, the lawsuits, the headlines, what sticks with me most is this. They didn't believe I'd fight. They saw a rancher with old equipment and a quiet house and figured I'd roll over, sell out, go away. They were wrong. This land belonged to my father and his father before him, and now it belongs to me. Not because I bought it, not even because I defended it, but because I never let anyone take it. A few weeks ago, I put up a sign at the edge of the field, just a wooden post and a metal plate. Nothing fancy. It reads, "These hills were mine, my father's and my grandfather's, and they will be mine forever." Logan Brooks. Sometimes I sit by it with a thermos of coffee and just watch the wind roll through the grass. Peace doesn't come easy in this world, but when it does, you damn well defend it.